Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And thanks for joining our good old monthly Chocolatey stream, Chocolatey Explained. Welcome to Chocolatey, where we are the Windows automation experts. I'm your host, Adil Lagari. I'm a senior solutions engineer here at Chocolatey Software. And I have with me as well my trusty compadre, my brother from another mother, Stephen Valdinger. Stevie, do you want to say hello?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, Stevie. So Stevie and I are senior solutions engineers here at Chocolatey Software, and we like to use our Twitch stream, the monthly Twitch stream, Chocolatey Explained, which was born out of our 12 Days of Chocolatey event, as a way to sort of keep everybody up to speed of what's the new features coming out and the new happenings in the Chocolatey for Business world, and also like in terms of generally Chocolatey in general, what we're introducing, new products, but also like Stevie will attest to in many of these streams, we kind of dive deep and we want to get into some of the technical features that you may not know about with Chocolatey as well. So specifically talking about new stuff. So today, what we're going to be looking at is actually the Chocolatey for Business Quick Start Guide version 2.0. So Stevie, I don't know if you recall, but around this time about 2 years ago, because today is Thursday, August 5th. So actually, according to my contract, exactly today, and according to our blog, 2 years ago today, I started at Chocolatey. So that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so 2-year anniversary. And I believe our first project together was the original Quick Start Guide, right?
Yeah.
And so kind of the motivation behind that was very much, looking at how can we create a guide to quickly and simply allow our users to come on to Chocolatey and sort of start playing with some of those Chocolatey for Business features in a simple manner. And so that was very much the impetus and motivation behind the guide. It was in early days at that time, and that was the current version of the guide. And I think we built something really cool to help users get up and running, just as sort of a good starting point. But it definitely was stuff where we wanted to evolve to eventually, right, Stevie?
Yeah. The original guide was good.
Let's slide over and take a look.
But it could be better, right?
As Ryan likes to say.
Yeah. So V2 takes some of the pain points, the lessons learned from the original guide, and improves upon them, and makes it an even more streamlined process at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And along those lines, right, we want to be fully transparent with you. We sort of learn out loud just with you here, and we'd like to show you everything that happens in this process. So what I'm going to do is we're actually going to walk through some of the original guide, and then I'll show you the actual GitHub issues and the stuff that we created around it to sort of evolve the guide over time, and show you where we're at now in terms of the Quick Start Guide of what we'll be launching shortly once we get our PRs merged into the Chocolatey docs. Very much so. And you know what? Just so you know, the Chocolatey docs are up on GitHub. You can always go up and suggest your own issues or work on PRs too if you want to. So we're more than happy to have the community join us there. So the C4B Quick Start Guide, we're just taking a look at it on the screen here, the version 1.0. So walking through it, we touched on a little bit of the components of Chocolatey for Business, the different pieces of a repository server and possibly central management and some of the administrative workstation. But we didn't actually go down that path too far just yet. We focused on some of those components. We touched on those here. We walked through the requirements of what you would need, the different description of those components. And then a lot of these commands were actually getting you to run your first Chocolatey commands, right? Stevie, we built some packages here called C4B Quick Start and the Nexus package, basically to help users try out their first Chocolatey packages and help set up their repository and pieces like that for the Chocolatey for Business solution, correct? Yeah, so this is just sort of a starting point. So some of the challenges that we ran into over time and some of the feedback we got from users, and again, this is the great part about this, guys, is again, gals, out there having your feedback and come back to us and sort of really guides a lot of what we do here. So the feedback that we got from folks was generally that, yes, it's a good starting point, but we want more, right? We want the ability to add additional pieces to this puzzle. So you'll see some of the commands come through here in this guide, and then we talk about central management here. So central management, Chocolatey central management is our sort of biggest, most far-reaching product offering in terms of features. And it's our web portal, it's our API, it's our single pane of glass that lets you communicate with all of Chocolatey in your Chocolatey for Business environment. So we didn't really have any integration into that just yet because it can be a little bit of work to set up. And users who went into the Chocolatey Central Management setup, because we cover so many different possibilities for techniques and methods to set up central management, users were sometimes getting a little bit lost. So they wanted an opinionated setup. Users wanted a one way to do things that was easy and quick, but it wasn't quite there yet in terms of central management in the quick start guide. So a couple of things. In fact, Stevie, why don't we hop in and actually take a look at the issue from that we created back here, because this is a good way
absolutely.
to start. So let's take a look at the actual run through the actual issue itself. So feel free to hop in at any point if you want to and interrupt me. I know we're good at that, but so here generally, so big thing, people wanted an easy way to POC, right, to proof of concept their environment, and that specifically means they wanted to spin up one VM and have all the pieces running on that specifically. So they wanted to be able to have the Nexus repository, central management, maybe even a Jenkins pipeline running on that one place. So currently there was no coverage of this central management setup at all in the guide. And also we made an evolution over time. We actually evolved as a company and as we have new ways in which we do our licensing now. So now, as a consequence of that, even your trial license gives you access to be able to bring in packages. So before the process was always you had to go and download some packages on the trial license from an email, put those packages in a folder locally on a VM, and then start running some of these scripts. It was a little bit clunky for new users to get started. And so we wanted to make that a lot more streamlined for them now that we have, the trial licenses right in the license feed and being able to access the licensed components, which is great. The other piece, of course, those two packages, we had to maintain those over time. So every time there was a new release of Chocolatey, basically they weren't self-maintaining. And so we were talking about building some automation in place, but in the way that we're approaching the guide now, the good news is you don't need to actually do this. It will automatically pull the latest versions as a part of the guide. So very cool that we don't require additional setup there or maintenance for that. And so the other thing here was a big one, which is kind of like a funny one because it's kind of counterintuitive, but intuitive at the same time. It's counterintuitive to a Chocolatey package in that you don't necessarily want to build interactivity. You don't want a bunch of pop-ups. But the important thing was, from our perspective, we wanted the ability to be able to prompt the user for certain things. Users will always want to cut and paste, right? Copy and paste the code that you put up in different repos and in your guide, of course. And so they want the ability to be able to copy and paste that, not worry about if they've missed defining a parameter in that code. So the important thing was we wanted the ability for the scripts that were behind this guide to be intelligent enough to know that, hey, the user hasn't actually defined anything for these things. I'm going to go ahead and prompt for it. So that was an important piece of this. And the big thing here is Qt. So let's talk about Qt for a second, right? The quick deployment environment, the sort of brainchild of my fellow Stevie over here, my fellow mad scientist. So quick deployment environment was born out of essentially an idea that many of us had here at Chocolatey for a while. And it's about a year old, actually a year and a half old now, right, Stevie? It's been around for a bit. And sort of during the pandemic, you want to talk about it? It was sort of during the pandemic, and we kind of had some ideas about making it easier for users to try stuff.
Yeah, so the original idea was more cloudy than what this is, but we now have the cloud native version as well. It is about to come out. Yeah, it is about to be released. But yeah, the idea was, COVID hit, people are working from home. People need a way to manage software that's easier. And how can we give our customers the fastest way possible to get started? Because obviously they're not going to have time to spend to build out infrastructure that's disparate, several boxes, and get all that up and running, get up to speed with everything, make sure it's all set up correctly. That all takes time. And in the beginning of the pandemic, you've got IT system administrators and help desk folks, et cetera, that are scrambling to prepare laptops to ship all over the country to people that are now stuck in their houses for however long, and we're still stuck in our houses for the vast majority of folks. So how can we make that process easier? Enter the quick deployment environment, a single appliance that comes out of the box with everything already pre-installed on it. You just need to run a setup script to make it match your environment, make sure things like host names are correct and SSL certificates are in place, and things like that to make sure it all lights up. And then give them the ability with a feature flag to turn it on for internet enablement. So all of those laptops that they shipped home to people, they can still update software on those machines over the internet without a corporate VPN connection. Because there are plenty of customers and clients out there where some of them did have VPN tunnels and remote workers, and that was all set up. But some people didn't have that stuff in place. Like they're sending laptops home with no way to manage them.
Yeah, so remote deployments was a big use case for us, and we wanted to make it simple for them to be able to do that without a lot of overhead.
Yeah. So with the appliance, you could in a couple of hours have an environment stood up, have the vast majority of your packages that you needed, that you cared about, your Google Chromes, your Firefoxes, your VS Codes, whatever, internalized and updated, and a mechanism on the box wherein you could say, hey, for these machines, install Google Chrome, and it would go out over the internet without a corporate connection and install those applications for those users. Or if an end user needed something, they had something on their laptop that they could open with Chocolatey GUI, find the piece of software that they needed if you've got it packaged and available, and install it. Again, without the need of a remote support session or a corporate connection back over a VPN or something like that. So that was really the idea behind QDE. Was we've got this great idea for doing this in the cloud, but COVID happened now. We need something that's right now. What can we do right now to help? And that's where the idea came from, and it was born, and it's been great. It's been frustrating at times, but overall, QD has been great. It has given our customers the ability to really quickly get started and not have to worry about, how do I install Jenkins? How does this work? What is Nexus? How does a repository work? Like, what is all this stuff? We've answered those questions for them.
It's been a great sort of pipeline into software package automation for a lot of folks, an introduction, a good gateway in for that, if you will. And I agree with you 110%. That's definitely where we see QDE having the most benefit. The quick deployment environment got people started with Chocolatey for Business real quick. One of the things when Steve mentions challenges, it's funny because we do deal with this from time to time, but it's very interesting. So one of the things that we saw again and again, and the feedback we get from users, again, why we revisit the Quick Start Guide a little bit, is because users have customized environment. Everybody in your organizations and your enterprises, there's always a lot of stuff in place that you have as an organization, standards, practices, templates, et cetera, and security best practices, which kind of sometimes can preclude you from being able to easily use an image, right? So QDE was offered as an image and is still offered as an image. It's offered as a Hyper-V image, a VMware image of VMDK, as well as an OVF. And it was offered as an Azure image with some scripts, but that is actually quickly evolving. We have another project on the way that I can't really talk about yet, but we are ready to have more of a marketplace type of offering to the Azure thing. So that's going to make things really easy for folks in the Azure space to set that up. So that was one of the big pieces of feedback we took in, and a lot of hard work by Josh and James on that end, and as well as Paul managing that. It's been a big project. And so I'm really proud of what they've done there, and they should be very proud too. But that was one of the pieces of feedback we got was, hey, I want to be able to spin this up in my own infrastructure, right? Bring my own VM, want to be able to spin this up and have everything ready to go. So instead of trying to crack the nut of trying to solve all the different problems, in everybody's different infrastructure and environment, and be able to have the image work in every single different permutation of that possible, we thought, okay, let's revisit this. Let's take a step back and let's see how we can make a version of Chocolatey for Business and all the different components that QDE has available to everybody to be able to spin up themselves on their own VM. Let's say you have a VM template that's required by your security team. Let's say you have an ARM template that's a specific spec, or you have an AWS AMI. AWS or Amazon Web Services was one of those things where we didn't have a custom built AMI image ready to go. So a lot of our AWS users were like, hey, I'd like the ability to spin this up quickly and easily too. And there are ways you can do that with the OVF or the VHD to migrate it in, but we wanted to give users the ability to say, hey, bring your own infra, whatever you want right there. We want to be able to support it. So that's kind of where this comes. So there's two pieces to this. This is the current version. This is just running in localhost 5080. You'll see here, this is just a local version of the docs that where it'll get to eventually. This is the new version of the guide, and we'll talk through this a little bit. So this will be live soon, folks, probably within the next week or so, assuming we finish stuff with drafts and PRs. So just to give you a preview of this is what's running locally on my environment. And so what we're trying to do is we're really striving for simple, as our CEO Rob says. Likes to say. So striving for simple means simplicity can be actually quite complex to get to a place of simplicity. So a lot of hard work over the past month or two has gone into this. I'd like to thank Stevie and Ryan as well for their countless hours dedicating to this as well. The three of us have really been banging our heads against a lot of stuff to try and make this simple for you folks, and for everybody out there to be able to have a quick way to start with Chocolatey. So we'll walk through this a little bit, and I'll talk through the components now. So we wanted to make it super simple just to be able to run on one VM. So we have the 4 different components here. Number one is those license components. So what does a Chocolatey for Business license component, like license node, look like? So essentially, you install the Chocolatey package, Chocolatey itself, right? And then you install your Chocolatey license in the appropriate program data Chocolatey license folder. And then you install your Chocolatey licensed extension, Chocolatey.extension. Those 3 pieces installed on an endpoint are going to give you the ability to take advantage of all the C4B features, stuff like package builder, right click, context menu, create a package from any exe or MSI in 5 seconds, package internalizer that'll allow you to bring in and create offline versions of those 8,500 packages from the community. That's what it's going to give you the ability to do, is all the access those features. And of course, central management is a big one. So the web dashboard that'll allow you to manage a lot of this via web portal or the API. So that's the license components that go in as the sort of groundwork for any Chocolatey for Business installation. Then you have your NuGet v2 repository. So in this case, this is Sonatype Nexus open source. So that's the version that's installed on here that we'll be installing today. That's the piece of this where you need a NuGet version 2 repository. Chocolatey works best with a NuGet v2 repository, and then you can push up your NUPKG, your enhanced NuGet package formats that Chocolatey uses, those artifacts into this NuGet repository. So that's the necessary component of this solution. Central management, of course, is our web dashboard. So that's our single pane of glass. So that's where your endpoints check into and report their package status. So when we talk about package status, what packages do you have installed on this endpoint? And if any of those packages are out of date as per your repository. And now also we have CCM deployment. So CCM deployments gives you the ability, again, like Stevie mentioned with QDE, now the ability to be able to deploy packages and updates to packages from this web dashboard itself. Once those endpoints are checking in, you have the ability to reach out to them and install packages or updates to packages, which is pretty cool. Also, you can run ad hoc PowerShell commands through there as well, if you choose to. But yeah, that's all integrated in there. It's backed by an MS SQL database. So that was part of the setup that needed to be incorporated that we did there. So that's central management. The last piece of this is going to be an automation pipeline. So any good Chocolatey for Business solution, I like to say, has an automation pipeline integrated into it. In this case, this is Jenkins. Basically, what we're talking about here is a set of PowerShell scripts, right? Tasks. The CI/CD pipeline acts as your task runner on a schedule. So let's say you have 10 packages in your environment: Google Chrome, Firefox, Slack, Zoom, the usual suspects. You have this list of packages, and you want to keep these up to date automatically. Well, then you're really going to want to use a pipeline for that, and you're going to want to use package internalizer in that pipeline. as a part of the Chocolatey for Business features, because basically you're going to get an offline version of these packages so that you're not hitting the community repository on all your endpoint nodes necessarily. Those endpoints can now be behind a firewall or an air-gapped environment, even if you want, or wherever you want. It doesn't matter. They are all going to be consuming from your repository. So to set up your curated repository of applications, you can set up your Jenkins pipeline with, let's say, a parameter of a package list of 10 packages. And Jenkins will then go and on a schedule of your choosing, go and check the community repository for updates to those packages. As soon as updates are available, it's going to pull them down, internalize them for you, internalize the dependent packages as well. So let's say that's what package internalizer does actually. So if you have a reliance on something like Java runtime environment or .NET framework, that dependent package is going to get pulled down for you as well. And so all those packages and dependencies get pulled down, and Jenkins will also push those up into your repository for you. Now, of course, we provide a test repo and a production repo, so you can always push to the test repo first if you want to, have internal security teams do some detonation testing, et cetera, on those packages before you promote them to production. And there is a command a pipeline built right into Jenkins, I believe, that will let you promote from the test repo to the production repo. Is that right, Stevie?
Yeah, it does it by default. So by default, we push everything to test first, and then a trigger fires that moves everything from test to production automatically right away. You can modify that behavior if you want to disable that trigger that instantly goes from test to prod and do other things inside of there. Mm-hmm. If you want to, maybe you want to have another schedule that runs like 3 days after that initial job of internalizing the test. 3 days later, the trigger fires to do the test to production run. So it gives you time to do that detonation testing in your environment. Or if you wanted to, you could modify the PowerShell scripts that are running behind the scenes. There's some code comments left in the scripts that kind of tell you where to put the stuff. But you could absolutely have an Azure Dev Test Lab VM turn on, or a Vagrant environment turn on, and consume those new packages from the test repository to test them right inside of the pipeline and make sure they're good, and then promote them directly to production once that detonation testing happens in those environments. So super flexible what you can do there. But by default, out of the box, what's going to happen is they're going to internalize the test and then immediately push to production.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that clarification, Steve. Very cool. So that's the piece of the pipeline that we're talking about there. So these sort of four main components constitute like a fully functioning, soup to nuts Chocolatey for Business solution, if you will. So that's sort of covering that. We wanted to be able to put that all in one same VM. Eventually, we'll look to build this out as a distributed setup too. But the quick start guide focuses on very similar to QDE, one VM with all these pieces working. So I'm going to run through some of this stuff now, and then we'll actually kick this off running live. We'll run through the guide live because I really would like to prove out and show to you how quick it is to be able to set this up from scratch on a blank vanilla VM, Windows Server 2019 VM. So I want to get that running here real quick, and then we can also, Stevie and I can talk through the bits of it as it's happening, because sort of just the color commentary, because it will take a little bit here. I'm aiming for under a half an hour, folks. So let's see how it goes for the actual run. So a little bit of requirements here. First of all, Windows Server 2019 is ideal. 2022 plus is even supported well. 2016 is where you're going to start seeing some differences. So we definitely, it will still work, but it's nearing end of life. It's getting close to that point. And as a requirement, because of the way that the quick start guide runs through things, it sets up IIS for you. And IIS requires a reboot, unfortunately, the IIS components in Server 2016. So the script will understand that and know that you're running 2016 as a Windows server. And at that point, it will let you know, I'm going to go ahead and reboot your server, log back in and run the script on it. So the guide will be addressing that in its final version as well as you're coming out. So that's for that reason, in terms of simplicity and ease of use, I would definitely recommend 2019 plus as your server platform. 2022 plus works fine too. In the preview, we've run it and it installs just fine. So that's a good place to start. 4+ CPUs, I would say 8 ideally, if I was you. 16 gigs of RAM as a minimum, I would say. 8 gigs can work as a bare minimum, but we really want this thing to be performant. So generally 4 gigs of RAM is consumed just by the Java stuff with Nexus. So I would say those are the requirements for this VM that would be ideal. And just in terms of storage space, we're sort of trying to future-proof you here a little bit in some of the specs to be able to grow, have room to grow. But 500 gigabytes plus, even a terabyte is a good place to start, because those chocolatey packages in your Nexus repo are going to start building up. I'll tell you, one of the things we see a lot is Google Chrome itself likes to update every other day almost. So those packages, every time, if you have that bit of pipeline, it's going to internalize those. You're going to see the packages, every version of those packages in your repo. So it will grow quickly by design. You can always prune that over time as well. I believe Ryan has done some work around that in the docs and has some information up, possibly in a blog somewhere, to be able to prune Nexus and stuff and clean that up. So very cool there, Ryan. I'm giving you a shout out on the stream for that specifically. But the idea is sort of like you want room to grow with a lot of these different specs. The outgoing internet access is, of course, one of those things where you actually do need to pull down from the community repo, and not just the community repo. As we talked about, the community repository, because of distribution rights, it's a public feed. It doesn't contain the binaries. So those will need to be pulled down from the vendor servers themselves, which Package Internalizer handles for you, but you still need that egress access to the internet. And of course, administrator user rights is an important piece of this. So without further ado, let's start kicking into the actual guide itself. So I'll scroll through here just to show you this has actually gotten a lot more compact. And the reason is because we've pulled a lot of these steps into scripts. All of these scripts are contained in a repo called Choco Quick Start Scripts, which is also hosted in the Chocolatey organization. So this is meant to make things simpler. Now, of course, this is a repository with code. So remember that. If you want to pull this down, if you want to git clone it and test it out yourself and vet it, first of all, then you can do so before you ever get your hands on it. Sorry, folks, I believe an ambulance is going by. You gotta love it when we do stuff live, and they just, people are sick. People have to get where they need to go. Hold on one sec. I'm just gonna make. Okay, much better. Excellent. So the guide is based on scripts which are in this repo. This repo, you can clone it and you can vet it yourself. You can take a look at it. It's all open code. It's all licensed under the Apache 2.0 license, so you can go ahead and take a look at it. There's nothing closed source there that we're doing. So feel free to vet it if you want, but that's what we're doing here. We're essentially pulling down this repository and running some of these steps for you. So we're keeping the actual scripts here nice and simple, just PowerShell commands, PowerShell scripts that have commands built into them. So if you want to see details on what these actual scripts are doing, we do include a little bit of a note here on running through the actual steps there. But of course, we can also link to the actual script itself, the script file in each section, which we probably will do to give you added peace of mind to be able to go and look at the code too if you want to. So this first script is actually going to pull down the rest of the repository, and so it's available locally for you. We're going to set up central management, like sort of the bootstrap of Chocolatey for Business first. Then we're going to set up your Nexus repo, then your CCM Chocolatey Central Management install. And then we're actually going to support SSL. So we have the ability for you to be able to use your custom SSL certificate if you want, if you have one from your domain, or if you have one that's acquired or purchased from somewhere like Let's Encrypt. Then you can use that as well. As long as it has an exportable private key, you can incorporate that in this step, and then we'll set up Jenkins as a final step here. And we do have a note here on setting up endpoints as well. So this is going to be beginning and end, soup to nuts. Let's get going with this. Let's start some of these steps here. So I'm going to slide over here. I have an Azure VM, vanilla VM, so I'll give you a look at it here. It's just called C4B here, and you can see the specs. It's spec'd out there with plenty of RAM and CPU. In addition to that, I have a certificate. So I went and installed Chocolatey ahead of time because I wanted to just have an easy way to have Let's Encrypt cert. So I used a Let's Encrypt WinSimple package, Chocolatey package, and I generated a Chocolatey certificate, a SSL certificate for this ahead of time called c4b.c0.co. Of course, I have a fully qualified domain name, c4b.0.co. And so I have a DNS record created for this that resolves to the IP of this machine. So that is, of course, needed because that's how your endpoints will know where to get to. So I pulled out the thumbprint here already, and I've saved it in a little text document here. So I'll have it ready to go. when I need it. But you can see my certificate. I've just put it in the personal store because this is going to be a part of the setup. So without further ado, let's kick off this guide. So I'm actually not doing any typing here. I'm just going to copy this command. The important thing is we wanted to be everything to be able to be copy and pastable without any extra setup. So, sorry, my bad. I'm copying the wrong thing here. I did this wrong, didn't I? Let me go back over here. Yeah, no, that's Stevie. Can you take a look at my thing? I'm not sure what I'm doing that it's not happy with. Start C4B setup. Yeah.
It's fine. Copy that again.
Yeah.
Put that in PowerShell again.
Okay.
Oh.
Wait, am I fat fingering something?
Yeah, I think there's a typo somewhere. I think
somewhere. We're doing it live, so
C4B setup. There we go.
I may have in my local version of the guide just be out of date with this. Let me just pull this from the repo here, just to make
pull
sure.
it from the repo. I'll put
so the
it
repo has the
in-
same version of this as well. So let's just copy it into here and see if this works for us. Nope, it's doing the same thing. So this is great, folks. This is exactly where you do it live and you find out what it's not happy with. So I have, yeah. That's interesting because it's got the GitHub user. So this we can get to here, right? Let's see.
I just pasted a new version of that into the Zoom chat for you.
Okay, cool.
So maybe just update that variable and it'll
Yeah, it does go there.
Yeah, that works. So
Okay.
just update your quick start variable to that.
Okay. I'm gonna copy this and I'll just go quick start. And equals. And we'll go. Okay. Okay, so it's working. I think it was just the difference was Choco quick start scripts. I want to see what we actually did here that it wasn't happy with. Raw GitHub user content.com chocolatey choco quick start scripts main start C4B. Oh, this is CCM. You just did CCM, sorry.
Oh, did I? Did
Yeah.
I give you the wrong one? Oops.
That's okay. Oh, you know what? You know what? I think I know what it is. It was casing. It's funny because we corrected the casing and GitHub is sensitive to the casing. So C4B was no longer a capital B. We follow the PowerShell naming convention.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's specifically what it is there. Let's see. Wait.
Put it.
Oh, that's the one in scripts is with a 2. Josh, you're absolutely right. That's the one that you use if you have 2016 with the second step. So that's not what this. So I'm going to correct this here. So simply what it was, folks, is we corrected the casing for this to be C for under a lowercase b there, and it was capital B there. So since we corrected that in the repo, it's actually going discretely to that file with the correct casing. So that's the difference here. So now if I run this should work. There you go. So what the quick start script is going to do, first of all, is it's going to prompt you for your license file. So this was something where people always forgot to include their license file. The nice thing about this is even if it's available in a share that you have here, in this case, a map drive, you can go into your share. You can actually go into the share and pull it out from there. So I can pick this file out and it will go, and the script will actually go and validate your license to make sure that the expiry is correct. Once it's there, it will pull your license in. It will install Chocolatey if it's not already installed. Obviously, because I needed that Let's Encrypt package, I already installed Chocolatey. And now it will go ahead and install your Chocolatey licensed extension for you as well. And this is the bootstrap script. This is the first step here. So a lot of what this is doing is actually just getting everything ready for you. So it's pulling down this repository of packages and the details there. And then it's prompting for your C4B license, and it's going to, actually take your Chocolatey for Business license and turn it into a license package as well for you. that you can use in your repository on your endpoints to be able to deploy your Chocolatey license the same way you do any other Chocolatey package. It's going to pull down all that stuff on the repo, and then of course the rest of the Chocolatey packages that are required for setup, it will also pull those down for you as well. So that's kicking off now, and that's running through. I believe the step we're at now. Yeah, it's now pulling down the repo. So it's installed the Chocolatey license components now fully, and now it's pulling down the entire package from the repo. And what it's done here now is it actually has created a Chocolatey license for the Chocolatey license package. So now it is actually installing that Chocolatey license package on this VM just to make sure, just to let you know, sort of do a sanity check to say, hey, this package works, and it actually is there. So that's very cool. So it's doing that as a part of the bootstrap. And then now what you're going to do is it's going to go ahead and pull it down a lot of these Chocolatey for Business and other packages and dependencies for you that you'll need for later steps. So as this is happening, you can go in here to your Choco setup folder, and you'll see that now in the files folder, all of that repo has been pulled down for me. So all of these files exist here for my next steps. So some of the internal scripts are there as well as helpers, but the main scripts that we'll be running are right here. So you can always just edit any of these, highlight them, and then go look at the code yourself too. Just hit edit, or if you have VS Code, you can use that as well to go in through and take a look at the actual code and see what it's doing. So there's nothing hidden here. It's all straightforward, but feel free to vet that at your own leisure. The other piece of this here, in the packages folder, you'll see these packages are being pulled down for us now and internalized. Some of them are being internalized, some of them are just being downloaded, depending on what the need is. Now you can see a bunch of the Chocolatey packages are being pulled down, but in addition to that, your Chocolatey license exists here. So because my license file is good until 2022, 717, it's created that as my version number for this license as well. So all of this is being done for you automatically as a part of the scripting. And again, sorry about the casing thing in the beginning. We'll correct that. We literally did a PR merge. What was it, Stevie? Like about 10 minutes before we ran this, and Stevie actually warned me before, and he specifically has admonished me about it before. Where he's like, let's not do PR merges 10 minutes before. And so yeah, this is mea culpa. I'm sorry, Stevie. You were right. I probably shouldn't have. We should have done it right before. But I like to live on the edge a little bit, right? As we say. So that's good. That's exactly what that was. It was a casing issue more than anything. And you're right, Corey. You got to YOLO sometimes, right? You got to live dangerously. Don't tell Gary I said that. So so the packages are being pulled down. Once this process is complete, that first Bootstrap script is complete, then we're going to move on to the Nexus setup. And so this actually does quite a bit for you, this Nexus setup. What it's actually doing is it's installing Nexus, and it's actually creating a lot of repositories and stuff for you as well. I'll highlight that as soon as this is done, because we're almost done, I believe, with the Bootstrap piece. What's the right run? I like to show everybody what's going on, because it's sort of like, it's fun to be a little more interactive with it. A lot of the stuff, when it's automated, you're kind of like, you miss what it's actually doing in the background. So there you go, that one finished. So the first script finished. So all I need to do here, again, writing no code, I can just copy this once I fix the casing issue. They're writing no code. You right click, and now I'm gonna run the Nexus setup. So this will first, of course, install the Nexus repository itself. So the Nexus repository Chocolatey packages will get installed. And that's how we set up Nexus initially. Now, Sonatype Nexus is your NuGet repository application, manager application. So specifically around that, it has some demo repositories it sets up for you, just dummy repositories, just examples. This script will actually go through and clean those up. And it will create a Chocolatey internal production repository and a Chocolatey test repository for you, both NuGet repositories that you can sort of produce and consume against for packages. It will also create a Choco install raw repository where you can host some scripts. Now, those scripts are going to allow you to quickly get your endpoints subscribed into Chocolatey as well. So your endpoints will be able to connect there and pull down some scripts to install Chocolatey and the license components and all those pieces and check into CCM. So that raw repository will get set up as well. A lot of these pieces, by the way, folks, that are running behind the scenes in this script for Nexus are actually written by Stevie here. So Stevie has a module called Nexus Shell that is out there that you should check out definitely if you're using Nexus at all. It's a PowerShell module, and it actually gives you a sort of an API-based way to interact with a lot of them, what Nexus does in a sane manner. I know that Stevie's banged his head against Nexus and how it works quite a bit. So there's definitely some interesting ways that it works, and Stevie solved those hard problems for you. So he gives you easy PowerShell ways to do that. So we've pulled in with thanks, we've pulled in some of the code from his REAP module specifically to be able to perform some of these functions. So this will set all those repositories up for you in Nexus ahead of time. And then specifically, it'll set up Chocolatey internal as a source on this VM with an API key already set up and ready to go, so you can push to it. And then down at the bottom, of course, it'll install Microsoft Edge, Edge Chromium, because partly that is a little bit of a better way to interface with Nexus and some of the other websites we find. It's a little better than IE built on VMs in Windows Server. I really hope that goes away eventually. And of course, it'll output some of this data to JSONs for the other steps to be able to use. So a lot of that, what happens here when these scripts run, is we actually output JSON files of data so that the scripts can pass information between each other as well. But you can also examine that JSON yourself as you see fit, or consume it in different ways. So you can see now, not only has it set up those things and cleaned up the repos, it's actually now pushing the packages that I used from the last step from the Bootstrap script. It's actually pushing those packages up into my Nexus repository right now. So these packages that we brought in our last step in the packages folder here, these are getting pushed up into your Nexus repo. So not only is it creating those Nexus repos, but it's also populating them with some packages for you, which is cool. So now it's also added that repo here locally on this VM as a source. So now you can consume against the repo specifically. And also it's added an API key for it. So now you can actually produce packages and push them up to the repo as well. This step here, I should probably include another write host here in the script. Stevie, remind me, I'll make a note of that. But specifically because this is installing Microsoft Edge. This is just where it slows down a little bit. And it's simply because it's installing a Microsoft component. You figure Microsoft would be fast at that on a Microsoft Windows server, but what are you gonna do? We work with what we got. So those pieces are gonna get done there. It's almost done with the Nexus piece. And then we're gonna start the CCM setup. Now, the CCM setup, just a caveat right up front, Chocolatey Central Management requires a SQL backend. So we're going to have to install SQL Express. We're going to have to install SQL Server Management Studio and some of those pieces. So obviously that's going to take a little bit more time to do. So plan accordingly, but not too long. The nice thing is we are coming up in good time here. So I'm just going to copy and paste that code again, not typing anything. Now, one of the things that central management requires is database access to the SQL Server. So you need to create a credential. Now, of course, all of the stuff that it's prompted for so far in the scripts, if you look, there is ways in that you can use, you don't need to use the prompts at all. You can pass these parameters ahead of time. They are variables that are defined as params. So you can pass them to the scripts if you want. But the nice thing is if you just copy and paste the code, it will just prompt you anyway. So nice and easy, either way works. And we wanted to make it super simple for you to be able to copy and paste. So what does this script do? Let's talk about it a little bit because it's kicking off. Obviously the big part is that it installs MS SQL Express, your database backend for central management. It creates your Chocolatey management database, adds the appropriate Choco user permissions that were the ones we just created that credential for. When you create that credential, of course, make a note of that password. It's important. You will need it for later in case you need to get in. There are ways in which you could get into SQL without having that password, but resetting that credential is going to be, a little bit annoying because then all the other components build on top of this for central management, the service, the database, and the web components of central management are going to use this credential. So probably something you want to hang on to. So when you create that credential, just be sure to note down the username password there. And so then it's going to go through and install all the 3 CCM packages, so the Chocolatey Central Management packages. So that's Chocolatey Central Management Database, then Chocolatey Central Management Service, and then Chocolatey Central Management Web. So those 3 packages will be installed with the correct parameters. Of course, those credentials are going to get passed for the input, and then it'll output all this to JSON here in the end. So SQL Express and SQL Server Management Studio are probably the biggest pieces of this install. And there is a reason why we're doing this in this very specific order. If you change the order here at all of any of the script runs, then be prepared for a little bit of pain because definitely each script does rely on data from other parts of this, the other scripts, and also, sort of the logic of the scripts going through and, setting your SSL certificate at the right times is going to be very important for later steps. So we'll just let this run a little bit. This is going to be the one that takes a little bit longer. Steve, do you have anything you wanted to add to this while we're waiting?
Yeah, I'm just making notes for myself of things to add to the guide before it's like finalized and actually published to the website. So that Chaco user, just to give a little bit more clarity there, we're actually using that credential to create a login inside of SQL Server. So that's going to be a SQL account that gets created. We set the instance to mixed mode authentication so that you can use both Windows Auth and SQL Server Auth. And we set everything up to communicate to the database using that SQL Server account Chaco user that we're creating. So yeah, I've got a note here to make it more clear in the README that for that credential, whatever you pass, make sure you have that credential documented in a password manager or in some sort of system. In the very, very unlikely chance that you'll need it. But if you do need to fix something later or poke things later for reasons, you're going to have that credential to do anything.
Absolutely.
They're very important.
Yeah, it is very important. So it does pull that into a variable, the script, and actually uses that in the install of all of those different CCM packages for you. But yeah, by design, you wanna hold on to that and put it in the password manager somewhere, because it would be required when you go back. So you can see here, this is good news. So SQL Server installed, and its dependent packages are being installed for SSMS now. So SQL Server Management Studio is now being installed. So we are making good progress here, which is cool. And then once that's done, we'll see the central management packages kick off and install, and they will actually have the correct parameters passed to them from those variables for that credential that Stevie just mentioned. So that's going to happen. And then we'll just let that run for a second. I'll just run through some of the additional steps that we're going to do here after that. So the next step we're running is you have two options. And again, the final version of the guide will have more explanation around it. But you're running this script called set SSL security, specifically .ps1. So you have two options for that. You can just run it. And if you just run it bare bones like that, what's going to happen is Chocolatey will use a self-signed certificate that's already been generated at the server level, that it'll use for that SSL setup. The existing self-signed cert, some of the stuff that the service uses, Chocolatey Central Management Service, is what'll be used in that internal setup. Now, of course, you have the ability to set up your own custom cert. If you're going to expose this to the internet in any way, then we highly recommend that you require a SSL certificate for that, a valid one that is either a custom cert that you've purchased from a certificate provider like Komodo, Let's Encrypt, all the different ones, or something you've generated, of course, via Let's Encrypt for free, or a domains cert that you have. From, if you have, your domain has a certificate authority, you can generate your own certificate. Just be sure that when you do any of those, when you use any of those options, that you have an exportable private key on that certificate. It is an important requirement for Nexus specifically. So this script is going to go through and actually use the certificate that you have defined. If you don't define it, it'll use the self-signed cert, and it will add those bits. It will add that certificate to your central management web and to your Nexus web portals. So now your HTTPS communication between those two spots will actually be secured with the SSL certificate of your choosing. And of course, it will also generate a script here called register C4B endpoint, which will allow you to easily be able to have your endpoints register in here as well. So once that's done, we'll kick that off here as well. So I can copy and paste this command, but I have a version of this command already in here with the defined thumbprint. So I'm going to just copy and paste this version of the command as my next step for what to do here once this finishes. So you can see IS is being installed now as a part of the central management web components. This is the piece where if you're running, excuse me, if you're running Windows Server 2016, you're going to run into the challenge that Windows Server, when IIS is installed there, it's going to want to restart before all those components get fully installed. So the script will handle that for you and do that for you, and it will warn you. Actually, in the reboot banner that comes up, it will tell you, hey, you're running Windows Server 2016. You're actually going to need to, in this Chalkly for Business installation, go and run a second script, reboot when the server reboots, go ahead and run the C4B CCM setup 2 script that's located in the folder here. I'll show you where that is. Under the scripts folder, we have a start C4B CCM setup 2. That's the second version of this that you need to run only in the case that you have Windows Server 2016. Make your life a lot easier, folks. Move away, migrate from Windows Server 2016 if you can, because the end of life is coming up pretty quick here. But yeah, 2019, 2022 are going to work just fine, as well as the the subversions of the cumulative quarterly update packs for those as well, which will be just fine for this install. So now you can see the bits are being installed for the rest of this here. We've got Visual C redistributable, and soon we will see. So database, CCM database, Chalkly Central Management Database package has already been installed. Now, shortly, we should be seeing the SPNet Core packages that CCM requires get installed here. So that's happening now. And then after that, you'll see the CCM service and web stuff get installed too. Actually, important point of note, we did just do a merge, and Gary's gonna pull my ear if I don't get this right. So actually, ASP.NET Core Runtime Package Store is now a requirement or dependency for the central management packages. So I believe by design, the script is now going to install those packages first before installing the rest of the central management components. So those are now requirements because we've done an uplift to a new version of ASP.NET Core and a new version of Chalkly Central Management. There you can see now the Chalkly Central Management Database, Chalkly Management Database package is being installed. So that is being done in the correct order. So we did that right. That was a good PRC. Yay. So that's, yeah, Gary's confirmed correct. And Gary is actually always watching too and hearing everything. So yeah, that's comforting and disconcerting at the same time. That's awesome. Thanks, Gary. Thank you for your support and love you. Yeah, so these pieces will get installed now. Database service web don't take too long, and then we can actually start getting some of this other stuff set up here. I already have this SSL script set up, copied into my clipboard, so I'm not going to have to worry about that. The last thing we're going to be doing here is Jenkins setup. So Jenkins, again, is that pipeline piece. So this Jenkins pipeline piece is actually going to be setting up not only Jenkins and the updated versions of the plugins, but it will also pull in the demo tasks that Stevie talked about beforehand. This piece of code was actually borrowed from work by Stevie originally, but then also by James and Josh. So thank you, James and Josh. I pilfered your code, but I'm attributing you, so it's fine, right? On stream, that counts. Yeah. There you go. So the service has now been set up, central management service, and you can see it's actually got a thumbprint and that it's using. So the cool thing about this is I learned this yesterday actually from Gary when we were talking through this stuff. So the actual code you can see here. So you can see this thumbprint matches the thumbprint of my certificate. So central management service is smart enough to know that if it has a host name that matches your subject for your certificate, even if it matches just the host name and you have a fully qualified domain name, then the service will pick that up automatically and use that as its default certificate for you. So it doesn't use generate a self-signed cert if it doesn't need to, which is very cool. So that's actually a piece that I won't need to go back and edit anyway with the SSL stuff. So it's smart enough to do that, which I like. I love that logic that's built in. Okay, so now we've got the web, which is the final component that's being installed. So this will allow us to run the website. Central Management Web Portal. That will get done. That's almost done. And I'm just going to make sure that I have this on my clipboard when this is ready to go. Okay, cool. Web was installed. So we're getting there. Stevie, were you unmuted?
Sorry, I didn't realize I had unmuted.
I thought you had something to say.
I don't mean to say anything.
Yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
just watching.
Cool. So SSL security, I just kicked it off. I passed the thumbprint to it, that script. So now this is the fun stuff. This is actually what Stevie recently added to our code. So gives us the ability, and we actually went back and forth about this, me and Stevie, a bit, because we were trying to keep this super simple. But one of the things that I thought was really important was the ability to be able to secure central management and Nexus with an SSL certificate. So we were toying with whether or not to include this in the first iteration of this guide, but we decided in the end to include it as a part of this setup. It makes the setup a little more complicated from the script end, but the good news is not for you. You don't have to worry about that side of it. But basically, a lot of the pieces like Nexus and CCM are now going to be wired with the SSL certificate that you provide. So you can have the peace of mind of knowing that you can define your own SSL certificate here in the code. So that's what's being done now. And once we have that piece, there you go. So SSL is done. So you can see the CCM stuff. Like I said, that CCM script is the longest piece of this. Once that's done, setting up the SSL script and the Jenkins stuff is pretty quick compared to that. So you can see I do a set location of this end system drive Choco setup files folder. This is just a sanity check we do every time in case you click out of your window. We want to make sure that you're in the right place, because some folks will come back and give us feedback to say, hey, I ran this, it didn't work. And when we go and look at their console, they're actually not in the right folder. I know it's a super simple thing, but it's better to cover that base rather than to have somewhere where folks can fall down. We're trying to help you out as much as we can, help you learn to fish in that analogy, if you will. So here's the Jenkins piece. This is actually just going to restart the Jenkins service a little bit here, and it's gone ahead and either in the next step, it's going to pull down those plugins. So it's going to update the plugin files for you ahead of time. This is one of the steps that we used to have to do with QDE, where it would update plugins in its first login, and that was kind of painful. But we just built the update of the plugins right in. I didn't do that. That was James and Josh, so full credit to them. So thank you for that. I know that James, you're in the chat, so you will probably say you're welcome or sorry, depending on how you're feeling. Likely sorry. James is from Cambridge, so he apologizes a lot. There you go. Okay, so we have one of the nice pieces of this that I didn't highlight. I was just blabbering on top of it was the CCM, Nexus, and Jenkins sites automatically pop up after 10 seconds. Now you can hit a key to skip that if you want, but we just thought it would make it super simple for you to have that set up ready to go. So this has actually popped up and opened your central management website for you. You can see now I have my Nexus portal with my Choco install, Chocolatey internal, and Chocolatey test. If you click on Chocolatey internal, my prod repo, I've already got my packages in here, so I'm ready to go. And I have Jenkins here set up. So if I'm looking for the login for any of this stuff, it's contained in those JSON files as a part of these scripts. But we are Stevie's actually working on a README that'll give you some of these credentials and where to log in anyway, sort of as a helpful way to be able to see it. So the reason why we need a custom README for this is because we want to auto-populate like admin passwords for Nexus, the default admin passwords, and also let you know the default login for central management and the default admin password for Jenkins, just so you have it there and it's super simple in one document. But yeah, we do help you out here part of the way where we open up the sites for you, make it nice and simple, but it is just a nice little touch we thought we'd add to the end there, because everybody, once this is done set up, is going to need to go into these portals and actually be able to log in for the first time, right? So the default login here is 123 QWE. That's the same with any default CCM install, and then it'll ask you to change it. And this folks, this is very important. I think Gary will enjoy this because he's on the stream. I need to repeat it, obviously, but you can see there's a little bit of a look and feel change in this version. And that is because we are actually running Chocolatey Central Management via version 0.6.1. So this version came out today, earlier today. So this is the first time in the stream that anybody's deploying this really anywhere in the wild. So that's the nice thing about this code. The way that we built the quick start guide is as soon as those packages are available, this version of Chocolatey Central Management came out today. So as soon as it comes out, when you run these scripts, automatically it's going to pull the latest versions of this. So this is version 0.6.1, which had a release date of today. So it's today years old. Congratulations. Yay. And so now, of course, you have central management here. You want to be able to check in endpoints, right? So the good news is we actually do put a script in here for you called register C4B endpoint. And again, the README will go into some of this in more detail for you there, but we do have that built into here. And what we do is we automatically populate this value here for you, which is the fully qualified domain name of your endpoint. Oh, sorry, of your VM. So this was what's going to get passed to the further steps to actually pull down the client setup bits on your endpoints. So I could spin up an endpoint right now, run this package on there, run these individual commands on there, and I would be good to go in terms of actually having this set up and running. So if I copy this out right now, let's say I just replace this. I'm going to hard code this a little bit, and we'll just go like that. So if I just run this, I should be able to run like so. Right, Stevie? I'm not crazy.
In theory.
In theory, it should work. Okay, there you go. So it's just kicking off and pulling in the client setup. The good news is this script is, you see it has a placeholder here. If you're using a self-signed cert, you have an additional step where it will put in code here if you're using a self-signed certificate. So the SSL script will inject code into here to automatically import your self-signed cert as well. Because we're using an official cert, we don't need that code. So it's just a placeholder and it's left that way. So that is by design. So here you go. We kicked that off, and yeah, this time it didn't scream at me like it did last time, Steve. So we're good. So the code is right on here for you to be able to register an endpoint as well. So you can run that code on in your endpoints. And once that's done, over here, what we can do is we can go to computers and we can refresh. And once it finishes streaming, oh, it hasn't done it yet because, yeah, now it's doing it. So it's registering and turning on the feature to use Chocolatey Central Management and use a Chocolatey Central Management deployment. So now the agent knows where to connect to, and it's going to soon show up here in computers. I did my job. There you go. Yay. So C4B is here now, and the packages are reporting here. So soup to nuts, beginning to end, we did it, folks. We got everything running. We got the next repository, the Jenkins pipeline, Chocolatey Central Management, and all of that running on your own VM from scratch. Once we correct the casing issues, I would say this is pretty seamless in terms of run. So let's take a look at, actually, we will go back. All of this stuff is logged, of course, in the Choco Setup logs folder. So we can actually take a look at when this started here. So I believe start C4B setup is the first piece of this. So this started at 8:05, 2021-08:05. That's today. 16:44 is the time it's going by this. So it's like, so that's 4:48 p.m. Okay, was the last time it was modified. So 4:44 p.m. it started, and 5:13 it completed. So not bad in terms of timing at all. So we got that done pretty dang quick. I'm probably, yeah, we're pretty close to the half-hour mark there. If we didn't have to hit the snags we did initially, I think we would be under the half hour. So very good. I'm happy with that. And I'm happy that we have a beginning to end installation. And specifically, when we go to these websites, you'll see this certificate this connection is secure. So it is using the certificate that we are using, that we did define. So this is that Let's Encrypt cert that's already installed into. So that's very cool. An added level of security for your Nexus and your CCM. So Jenkins doesn't have that certificate applied right now. And that's because ideally with Jenkins, you just set it and forget it. You're only meant to really manage it on that one node. You're not meant to manage it remotely, but you can secure that if you'd like to, and we will look to build that in a future version. But that should give you everything here in terms of the guide. And even in the setup and setting up endpoints, we do include that register C4B endpoint note here. So you can copy paste that code on your endpoints, assuming you copy the script over, of course, first. And that script actually goes into detail about what the script does here as well. So there you have it, folks. Beginning to end sort of way to set up Chocolatey now. And now we want to give you the ability to do it on bring your own infra. So any infra that you have, whether that's a VM in AWS, Azure, or a VM on-prem, you can easily set this up for yourself. That's so this will be coming out within the next week or two. I think Stevie and I have a couple of PRs to merge here, a couple of things to fix that we've learned in this setup today. So thank you folks for participating in our learning journey. And hopefully this has been informative and helpful for you. And anything you wanted to add there, Steve?
No, it's coming along.
Mhm.
I think it's going to give people an even easier way to get started if they want to build on their own infrastructure, which I know some people do. So
yeah, and
it's
again,
a great way to
folks, yeah, go ahead.
great way to do it.
Absolutely. And it's really, those folks that come in and they're like, we have security templates, we have like NIST guidelines, we have HIPAA guidelines, we have DoD compliance we need to meet for our templates, for our VMs and stuff. So this will give you an easy way to be able to still comply and build those images locally in VMs, join it to your domain, do whatever you need to, and then just run this quick start guide. So I'm just putting up here on the screen a couple of things here. So I have a quick start scripts folder. So the GitHub repo is up there in the Chocolatey. You can find it under Chocolatey, and that'll give that to you. Quick start guide v2 will be up at C4B Quick Start. That's the page. It will be up in probably a week or two. You can just watch that space in our docs, and it will get updated. Chocolatey for Business features are always available at C4B features. I don't know why that's just says C0.co, but if you go to C4B features, the C4B-videos, I believe, is the actual link. I'll update that in the slides. And then, of course, if you would like to reach out to us, you can always do that at sales.chocolatey.io. And that's pretty much me. Thanks for tuning in this time on this episode of Chocolatey Explained. Again, we hope this will be helpful for you in sort of onboarding and trying out Chocolatey for Business. Hopefully, the Quick Start Guide will definitely bridge that gap for you and make it easier for you to get up and running. So I want to thank you all for your time joining in. Again, we do this Chocolatey Explained stream every first Thursday of every month. We'll hope to see you in the next one as well. And thanks for showing up in the chat as well. Stevie, anything on your end?
Just thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Have a good one. Bye now.